Hello humans, my name is Nevi, and I should have done this months ago. I said back in June that I was planning on doing this, and I've uploaded a lot of videos that are not this since then. We're doing another DIY EGL video today, a little over a year since my last one, where I teach you how to make the blouse that gave me hell. In my Bioshock to Hassan video, I said that I was trying to transition away from using commercial patterns as basis for my pattern draftings. This blouse is 60% of the reason I made that decision. This is a blouse that I designed after making the mock-up for a commercial blouse that I thought I liked and ended up hating. This is the blouse that I planned to go under the JSKs that I made for the Crystalline Venus collection. While I did end up using the bodice that came with the same pattern, the blouse is ugly. So I changed the collar and sleeves, which took a lot of time because no one likes doing collars or sleeves. I have now made this blouse 7 times over because I needed 6 different colors for Crystalline Phoenix and the 7th one, which I recorded for this video. Thing is, I rushed it, so it doesn't look as good as it could. I didn't line it, which I definitely should have, and I also used Fray block in places that I really shouldn't have because I was trying to power through brain fog, horrible idea, and I didn't want to do proper end seams because I couldn't concentrate that hard at the time. I also cut the neckline a little wonky, but I know how to fix that. It's still wearable and even fixable to some degree. I just made some lazy choices from deciding to do it at a bad time. I also want to bury it deep in the ground for just a little while. I have since fine-tuned the process, but I am not making another one of these for a long time. I just want to move on. Take this as partially me learning from my own mistakes. There is a Dropbox link in the description for a PDF pattern that I have made to pair with this particular episode, which has instructions on how to measure the individual pieces yourself and has more detailed making instructions than my narration will cover in this video, which I'm offering completely free. However, if you want to tip me for my work, I do have a coffee now, so that will also be linked in the description. I do not recommend trying this pattern if you are not comfortable with sewing darts, gathering, or sewing buttons or buttonholes. However, I do recommend using tailor's chalk and a safety pin. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Besides fabric and thread, you'll need 6 to 8 9mm buttons, a yard of 1/2 inch wide ribbon, 2 yards of 3/8 inch wide ribbon, a yard of interfacing, and a yard to yard and a half of lining for the front and back pieces. This blouse originally had 11 pieces to cut, including the interfacing, and when I was done with it, that number had jumped to 18. I gave it a proper button placket, changed the collar, and added a neck facing to finish the neckline and support the ruffles, and chopped the sleeves in half to add a layered frill to it. I'm using 3 yards of 60-inch wide peach skin for our blouse today. And because I was rushing, I straight up forgot to get lining, but we pressed on regardless. This pattern is meant for a 58 to 60-inch width fabric. A 45-inch width will require more yardage and force you to make weird seams in places where you won't want them. It's worth noting that I'm not using commercial interfacing with this, as commercial interfacing doesn't get along well with fancier flowy fabrics. If you insist on making a structured garment with a lightweight flowy fabric like chiffon or whatever, use organza in the interfacing's place. People use that all the time for structure before a dedicated product came along. But also, if you try to use adhesive interfacing, the fabric will be ruined, and you will be sad. If you're working with a solid or non-printed fabric, you want to mark the wrong side of your pieces with tailor's chalk so you don't get confused later. First things first, darts. Fold the darts in the front pieces towards the wrong side of the fabric. Stitch from the bottom and let the needle trail off the point for an extra stitch or two. Cut your threads long enough for you to manually tie them off so your darts don't end up pointy. Take your lacing hooks piece, fold it over horizontally, and stitch to make a tube. Now turn it inside out. I have a tube turner for this, but you can also do it with a safety pin by latching onto one layer of one side and pushing it back through the inside of the tube. After pressing, cut it into 10 equal sections. Press them in half and put them in the centerfold of each dart on the back piece, 5 on each side. Continue stitching as you would any other dart. Now stitch your shoulder seams and side seams. Now let's take our neck facing pieces and sew on the inner facing. Now stitch them together. Now line up your facing along your neckline and pin, making sure the facing seams match up with your shoulder seams. And stitch. Take your button placket pieces and stitch the inner facing on. Fold over one of the long sides and edge stitch. Take the other long side and stitch that onto the edges of the front pieces. Fold the top of your new button plackets and press. Fold them again, this time in half towards the inside of the garment, making sure the stitch edge is just past your new seam line. Pin that, and starting from the outside corner of the placket, sew horizontally and stop at your seam line. Turn the placket 90 degrees so it's facing you, and continue to stitch down inside the seam line to attach the other end of the placket without creating a new visible stitch line. This is called a ditch stitch. Now, I used fray block because I didn't want to do proper end seams, but I fine-tuned this in the pattern. Instead of what I'm doing in this section, take both ruffle pieces and fold over 3 edges twice, then edge stitch. Put one ruffle on top of the other and line up the bottom of the top ruffle with the center of the bottom one. Fold over the unfinished edge of the top ruffle twice, making sure to encase the raw edge of the bottom ruffle on your second folding. Press, pin, and stitch. Now slightly below that fold, you want to gather the ruffles. I have a gathering foot for my machine that does this for me, but I show how to manually gather in the video where I make my tulip tea dress. Fiddle with your gathers to line up your new layered ruffle with your neckline, and flip out the neck facing. It should be laid out to the other side when you attach your ruffle. When attaching, stitch either on or just above your gathering stitch, or your ruffles will be flattened, or at the very least less full. Now for the sleeves. Take the upper sleeve pieces and slightly gather them between the notches on the hump. Leave that stitching alone for now and stitch the rectangular sides together, then press. Take the frill sleeve pieces and edge stitch the sides and the bottom. I will not blame you if you want to use fray block for this part. Rounded hems are the devil. Put the short frill pieces on top of the larger ones and attach them with a gathering stitch. Wrap the new frill around the bottom opening of the upper sleeve piece. Make sure the upper sleeve piece's seam is on the opposite side of the frill ends, which should overlap slightly. To attach them, fiddle with the gathering stitch on the upper sleeve edge until it fits your armhole, and pin and stitch. And finally, sew the bottom hem. Now that we're done with the construction, it's time for buttons and decoration. There's a quote-unquote tradition where women's clothing always had buttons sewn on the left and men's on the right, a staple most likely taken from how upper-class Renaissance and Victorian women used to dress themselves, with servants. However, we're in modern times, and I believe your button side should be determined by whatever your dominant hand is. So if you're left-handed like I am, your buttonhole should go on your left, and vice versa. Your buttons should be marked and separated by about 2 to 2.5 inches. I have a buttonhole foot that does that work for me, but I will be linking a tutorial in the description on how to do it manually. Now take your thread and a hand needle because we're hand stitching the rest of this. Mark where your buttons should go, line up your plackets, and go to town. Use to stitch your buttons in place at least 3 to 5 times since they'll be under the most stress when wearing. Now to make the bow. Cut about 9 inches for your loops and fold the ends over each other. cut a second strip about 2 inches and wrap it around the center and stitch those ends together. Line up your new bow at the elbow on top of your frill opening and stitch the 4 corners of the center onto your sleeve. Now use a safety pin to lace your back hooks. And we're done. Like I said, I was rushing this because I just wanted to get it done and I didn't have the best mental clarity, but it's still wearable and under JSK it looks just as fine as the other ones I've made. Again, Dropbox link in the down there box to the pattern for you to try out for yourself if you're brave enough, and Ko-fi link also in there. Thank y'all so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye!